Let's go. Wait, I've been waiting a month to do that.
Sorry, I made you wait by accident.
No worries. Yeah, that's right. All right,
Good thing the medics are right away.
no, I don't get it. All right, March 11th, CIA board meeting. Now let's do a roll call. Tony's here, Scott? No, Rachel?
Present?
All right, Ken? No, Peggy?
Here.
Kelvin?
Here.
Bill?
Bill's absent.
Bill's absent, okay, and then Laura.
Here.
All right, so we've got a quorum. Very good. All right, agenda, I think everybody received agendas, it's in front of you. Any questions on the agenda? Anything else to add for
I
anyone?
only have one little piece of paper.
Yeah, I printed these.
Oh, yeah, you just have the
From-
agenda, not the pad. I
Yeah,
don't typically print
yeah.
hard full
Okay.
packets.
I thought I was supposed to have something else, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
No.
Okay.
No,
Sorry, Tony.
good, no, well, you're fine. All right, agenda's good, no public comments?
We need a motion to
Oh,
approve.
okay, sorry, I
Agenda.
move to approve the agenda.
Support. Second.
All right. Motion. Move forward,
All in favor?
all in favor? Aye, okay,
There you go.
thank you, sorry, I'm still a little rusty.
All right.
Um. No public comments. So,
No, Courtney's so there.
Courtney, anything from Courtney today? No. All right, so we'll get into the meeting minutes from January 8th. Everybody had a chance to take a look at those? Any comments on those?
Move approval of the minutes for January 8th, 2024.
Very good, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What do you second?
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
I'll second.
What's the matter?
Oh, I didn't hear you. Okay.
Yeah, support.
Got support?
Yep.
It was me.
All right, all good?
Yep.
All right, so we're down to, I think we revisit this, some old business. The MDOT project, the revised draft RFP for MDOT. So where, any updates there from,
Yeah, a bunch of them.
yeah, I know we've been working through it.
Yep, so, do you mind if I
Please,
go on with it? Okay,
please,
so,
let's move.
all right, hi, everybody. Good to see you again. Sorry we missed you in February. Okay, so full circle on West Saginaw RFP. There's a memo in your packet. If you've got the PDF, it starts on page 5. I guess in paper form, it also starts on page 5. So in this, I just have a really brief explainer here, kind of where we're going with this. And there has been a shift, and I'm looking for your support, but I want to propose I want to explain how we got here and then propose
Sure.
where I think we should go with it. So the last time we talked about this, it was really more conceptually design driven. It was that we were gonna get someone to give us some conceptual design of how the corridor in that area where the project is planned might look. We had some conversations here. Really, the person that kind of brought me to the light was our township engineer. I don't have a lot of real world experience in road projects. But it was really valuable to get some input from the voice of a person that would. That would be doing this kind of that would theoretically be a firm that would be bidding on this kind of project. So it's like, some real ground truthing to how that would work for us. And really the way that the information that was conveyed to me, and I agree and support this direction, is that in order for us to do our own kind of design of that area of the corridor, we would have to have a lot of information, first of all. So we have to have detailed traffic information, survey information, things that we are just not gonna have without paying for, and things that MDOT are gonna pay for and do and have. And so really kind of what that change, we were really kind of transitioning from a conceptual design focus to more of an engineer-based peer review focus. And what that means is we would be looking to take the data that MDOT collects as part of this project, run it through a peer review with a consultant that the CIA and the township employ to really be our expert in the room. And where the most important part of this is what they call the early preliminary phase or early engineering phase. Preliminary, I referenced
Preliminary,
the
yep.
early preliminary engineering phase. Um,
Mhm.
and that's where we have the best place to get our foot in the door on like the pre-design work, the public input design work, and to have as much voice in that process, because that's where they come up with all the alternative design alternatives. And then our engineer would then help us and really help NDOT. I'm seeing this as beneficial to both parties. And we did meet with them, which I'll come around to in a minute. To have somebody on our team that can really ensure that the MDOT's looking at the breadth and content of information that we think that they should. And that they're not missing anything or any perspective that could have an impact on the design alternatives. And really that they're casting as wide of a net and looking as many as options as possible, because that's really kind of what we want to see is as many options, design alternatives, and then we would also help them kind of narrow that down, because once they get to design phase, it's like they have one design, they run with it, and that's the end of the story. Then the horses out of the barn kind of thing. So that really is so the RFP was completely, I don't say completely redesigned, but a very good chunk of it was changed over to represent more of this peer review approach. So that's how the RFP is designed. We met with MDOT on Friday morning to talk about timeline, because as I think I mentioned in an email to you, when we first started our process, we had a couple reach out, and I think word got out in a couple other ways that we were looking into this, and the feedback we got was like, well, hey, we got our hat in the ring for MDOT's project. Thanks, but we're looking for the big fish here. And they are still, as of Friday, where they've decided on a consultant, but haven't finalized a contract with them and haven't released that information. So we're hoping to learn more in the coming weeks on who they picked. So in reality, this has actually worked, this timing has worked out. So if we get our RFP on the street next week, then when the EPE phase starts, and they have their consultant on, and we kind of have a kickoff meeting like either June or July, we should have somebody on board. We should be ready to kind of start that work. Our consultant, when MDOT starts collecting their traffic information, their modeling and everything, our engineer will be on the team to be able to review that stuff and make suggestions along the way. So I think that this is all coming together time-wise. But what I'm looking for is buy-in kind of on the scope of this RFP. And it's a little unusual for the township, but really I'm looking at it as kind of like our expert in the room on this project and can be able to kind of speak their language. And I think it's twofold. At the end, there really is this person, I think is going to be a good liaison for us to be able to translate kind of engineer speak and the project speak and be able to transmit that to the stakeholders in the area and speak intelligently about it. I mean, I think I'm pretty good at stuff like that, but in reality, it'd be helpful for having an expert that can see the situation, know the site, know the constraints of the project, and be able to explain really why, as they get further into these design alternatives, like why this was selected but not this. It really helped to tell that story about what the limitations are, because that site in general is going to have a lot of constraints just based on the size of the right of way and the highway interchanges and all that. So be able to explain not only why they are doing something, but why they aren't able to do X, Y, Z would be really helpful to us as well. So in a nutshell, that's what we're looking for. So the content of the RFP, specifically the scope of services, is vastly different from the last time you saw it.
Can we go through it?
Yeah, please.
Walk through it here?
Yeah.
And then when you work with MDOT, they give you, or when will this, you said probably looks like finalize the contract by May 13th.
Yeah, we'd like to have somebody before your May we'd like to have somebody to bring to the May 13th meeting to
Okay.
approve.
To approve, okay.
Yeah. And I know that's a tight timeline. It can always be put, we'd like to run aggressive if possible, and can always fall back if we have to.
Okay. And that firm will be with us through the early preliminary engineering?
Yeah.
Phase? Okay. When do we anticipate that, as MDOT indicated?
It starts runs for a year, so
A year,
it
okay.
starts as soon as as soon as they get their contract finalized, they'll do the kickoff meeting in the summer. The actual work doesn't start until the fall, was the way I understood, like October to October.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
all right, so I mean, roughly speaking, we're gonna have somebody on board late May, early, mid-May, but the work won't really start until October 24th through September 25 type.
That's the way I understand it now. Cause I think in between, they start doing their data collection as well, which is the information really that we need for our.
Yeah, the
consultants to
survey
review.
work, yeah.
And that kind of work is specifically excluded from this as we get into the scope of services. That's where the money starts. That's where the expenses start,
Mhm.
is where we're preparing documents and survey work, traffic study work, traffic modeling. So MDOT's gonna do all that stuff
I was gonna
already.
say, MDOT's gonna take care of all that.
Yeah, they're gonna do that work. Our person's gonna peer review that work and really just look at it from I guess a different perspective, but our perspective.
Right.
Kind of with our best interests in mind and getting the most out of that project in mind. And finding the opportunities that we have wherever they might be for us to kind of get a little bit more out of it, whatever that might be. And that's part of what the consultant will do. And if we go through this, I think it'll be more clear. It's my rambling explanation.
It sets up pretty good because MDOT put into their request for qualifications to work with the township and the CIA specifically in their RFP.
Yes,
And so from our understanding, this is not necessarily a process that they use all the time, or if they do, they have often bid out the early preliminary engineering separately from the design work. Well, this time they're trying to stick with the same firm and trying that out because historically when they go to the design, then that design engineer wants to recreate all the early preliminary engineering from a different firm. So they're hoping to flesh out all the public stuff and work with the township ahead of time. And then hopefully, once it hits design, then everything's kind of set.
So
Yeah.
where do we fall in on this?
We fall in, it's basically, we will be at the table early in the process in order to ensure that, one, our voices are heard in the project. And it's really, we just want to be in the room as these designed, as the data, to review the data, as decisions are made on design alternatives, and they said there's no set number of design alternatives, but there could be multiple. From the quote unquote craziest, a bridge over the highway, to, well, maybe we can get a little more right away in this area because we want to have a wider pathway. And it's just looking for those opportunities for us to have input on the project and potentially change the scope of the project to satisfy what we want, which is vehicular safety, pedestrian connections, traffic flow, that kind of thing. If we can get some wider pathways in the area, or maybe some lighting, and then part of the contract is also that person's gonna help us articulate that vision better than I'm articulating right now. And where are those opportunities? We just don't know yet.
So could we, before we meet with MDOT and the engineers and all of that, can we put our wish list together so it makes it a little bit easier? when we do
Absolutely.
meet with
Yeah,
them?
yeah. And that'll be part of what our engineer, our consultant would do, is help us flesh that out.
Okay.
And help provide kind of that reasonable voice to say, yes, this is something that makes sense. No, this is impossible and here's why. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Do you mind if we run through the scope real quick? So, Mary, yeah, scope of services, thanks. And if you can go just down to the next page, number 1. So there's 7 here. I'll just run through them. I'll kind of just summarize each one of them. Number 1 is conducting this engineering peer review of MDOT. So not only their plans, but also the data they collect, any reports, as well as some things that we do have. So we do have some survey data. Identifying omissions in that data and information that might be helpful to help develop additional project alternatives. So it might be something that MDOT doesn't normally look at, but that is possible. And we would have our person on the team to say, hey, we would also like to see this piece of information because that could help flesh out XYZ. And then offer suggestions or revisions to help ensure the project meets our stated goals. a little more on that in a minute. Number 2 is review of MDOT plans and data as it relates to the appropriate boulevard widths, locations for vehicle turnarounds, and then recommendation and making recommendations on that, because that is part of what they want to do. And keep this really brief, but I went through what they, if you've been in this area for a while, Bus Rapid Transit, CADA proposed Bus Rapid Transit on Grand River at one point years ago. There was a lot of criticism. It was depending on your perspective, it was a neat project. But there was a lot of criticism about the boulevards specifically and kind of how vehicles are able to access businesses, how emergency vehicles can get around the turnarounds. And we want to make sure that they are installed in the right place and that we are able to maintain access where it makes sense, that there's plenty of room for everybody to use the street. And there's, emergency vehicles, we got businesses, a ton of commercial vehicles in the area doing deliveries, going in and off the highway. So reviewing those plans and ensuring that our perspective is heard on that. Number 3 is kind of similar, but it's about access management standards. So when they do these, the township does have standards and rules about where driveways can be, when they need to be, when some driveways can be combined, when some access points have to be eliminated. So it's looking at the project in the context of our ordinance, but also kind of what makes the most sense. Number 4 is really be a liaison for our team. So attend this meeting, attend board meetings, potentially attend planning commission or any other project team meetings that we might need to serve as a liaison to MDOT and to any other related group while this early preliminary engineering phase is happening. And to be able to represent us, not alone, but represent us as an engineering voice and help communicate our vision to MDOT. Number 5 is working with our team to develop, articulate, and communicate design preferences for incorporation of the project. So this is kind of, they work with us to help us articulate and understand what it is we might want to do and then what it's actually is possible. Number 6 is identifying the best location and a preliminary design for a pathway on the north side of the highway. We have the connection on the south side, but we don't have anything on the north side. So make sure that that gets included in this project, and there's some efficiencies there that while everybody's out there, we will get that. We may end up having to pay for it, but that we would probably pay less because all the work's happening at the same time. So making sure that we are coordinating properly with MDOT to do that project. And then specifically number 7 is just saying, like, we're not expecting this person to do design work or do engineering drawings or conduct survey work or do traffic study or modeling or anything like that. So if we can get this on the street next week or later this week, then we would be looking for responses back by late April in order to bring this to you in May for a final decision. What we talked about doing was having interviews, have a wide net cast, to narrow that group down, and then the township, and then our team, and then Tony, Chair McGaldy, would join the interview process. And then narrow it further down to a finalist that we bring to this group for final authorization. So go ahead.
Jake's update was 10 on both sides.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I'm more comfortable with this approach. I think this makes a lot of sense to us, and I think it meets more kind of the reality and it provides some practical value for this team. The further I got down the design, it's just there's so much data that's needed to make a plan that was actually it's something that could be implemented. And it just doesn't seem necessary kind of anymore in the context of the bigger picture.
I like the idea.
Yeah, this is,
Yeah, concerns?
well, no, I think the framework is fantastic. I think is there any, item number 5, just for consideration, is there any specific deliverables that we're looking for right now coming out of the gate? I think that does a nice job representing. I think we want to develop, articulate, communicate design preferences. What is?
Yeah,
I mean, what is the
maybe
board?
just a letter.
Okay, all right. So you're thinking those type of communication, so a letter, or that we're looking at an exhibit to share?
Potentially.
And that's something to ultimately, at the end of this 12 months, let's say,
Right.
is there a packet of information or something that we will deliver to MDOT, or is this just just a collaborative? I see it at the
I think it
table.
would, I think it would be more collaborative and not, and if this works ideally, then um, our desires get incorporated in the early preliminary design. And so that's the piece that, you know, MDOT has that will then go into full design. And then at that point, we're kind of out of it unless they, you know, start into the really full design and say, well, this just doesn't work, or, you know, something comes up. But I
Sure.
think the idea is the early preliminary design flushes that stuff out. And if, you know, for instance, you know, the uh, you know, non-motorized transportation, we say that this is kind of what we want 10-foot paths. And they say, yeah, okay, here in our early preliminary engineering, this is what works and here's how it looks. And we say that's kind of what we're looking for, then that gets incorporated into their documents.
Yeah, because we're hoping that they can kind of do that work for us.
Yeah,
That's, so no, I guess the more direct the answer, I wasn't expecting that this consultant would produce any documents for us to
Okay.
share with MDOT. It would be more to help us articulate to what we need to say that would ring true with their team, and then they would do the design work for us.
gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, if there is, again, just maybe strengthen that language somehow, or maybe develop a work plan around that, just so that it may help whoever solicits this to
Okay.
understand what you're, because it's truly an advisor, really looking at a technical advisor is what I'm.
Yeah.
And is there anything from the township's perspective around utilities? I don't know, would this be the point? If it's storm, water, sanitary? Or Kelvin's duck bank, you know?
We're gonna name it after Ken.
We, yeah, we will look at that, but the utilities in that area are, at least in relation to the roadway, they're pretty far off and they're in pretty good shape. So there's not
Okay,
really, this section is where there's gonna be a lot of conflicts and movement and that type of thing. That section, it's
pretty clear.
pretty benign for the utilities.
Okay. That's all I had, Peter.
Okay.
Anyone else have any comments? Feedback? Laura, you okay?
No, I was
Yeah.
just thinking about all of it, and it actually sounds like MDOT is gonna be doing a lot of what we would have been doing, so.
I am very
as long as we-
optimistic.
Yeah. as
Yeah,
long
we
as
had a really
are-
good conversation. I think, I don't know what this is, I don't have a long history of MDOT, but they seem to have a very comprehensive approach in this case. Their people have been really willing to meet with us, and they seem really open and thankful to have us at the table. But you know, they are gonna be looking to, if there are things that we want, that we have to do that work and articulate it to them.
Yes.
They want our feedback, but they want it early.
When they're doing things like this in other parts of the state, do they work with? So this is like a first time for them?
I think not, I don't think it's the first time, but I think, I think it's their new philosophy is they've kind of recognized that there's less conflicts down the
Right.
road, but I mean, historically, and it's been different in different parts of the state, depending on who's in the local, you know, the local, offices or TSCs. Our last TSC director was really progressive. Really, worked with the township well on, some past project, the 496 projects. They installed, water main crossings for us as part of that project. We're very, you know, good to work with. Same with the Waverly Pathway. They did the construction on that. I mean, we paid for it or got grants for that type of thing, but they're very good to work with and on the front end of asking things that we want. So I think the current manager, I think they want to continue that and they recognize getting the local buy-in ahead of time is very beneficial.
Well,
You
it
know,
makes
and-
sense. We're the ones that
Yeah.
live here
Have
and
to
do
live.
business here.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, they still express, you know, there are constraints. I mean, there's cost constraints, there's right of way constraints, there's traffic, so there's, you know, it's not like, hey, let's do a 2-lane road with a, you know,
Horse and buggy.
let's do a road diet
Yeah.
for 23,000 vehicles, so they're
Like Mackinac Island.
you know, yeah, so I mean, they're realistic, but they say we'd rather look to incorporate this stuff early, and I do think it's a pretty big thing that they wrote it into their RFP is
So it's,
Tony
Yeah.
highlighted last time that, you know, our consultant will work with the township and the corridor improvement authority to at least, you know, help with public input or that type of thing. You know, it's no guarantee that they're gonna incorporate everything we want, but at least it's
But they also have that information as to what will work and, you know, the reasoning why it wouldn't or things like that. So
yeah, and I think as Peter pointed out, the value of this consultant will be somebody who can help with push back on different alternatives, or okay, you're saying this, but really, hey, here's a couple things that, have you considered this? And
Right.
then if they say, yeah, here's why it doesn't work, then we also have somebody who can say, they're correct, you can't,
Yeah.
you can't fit this in, or
And here's why.
here's why, or
Okay.
that type of thing.
definitely makes sense.
And I guess, how do we know what we want? We know that we want non-motorized transportation incorporated, so that pathway is one thing we want. What else do we want? The consultant's gonna help us get what we want, but what do we
what do
want?
we want?
Yeah, what are they going to
Mhm.
advocate for? Because what do we want to see incorporated in it? Do we know?
I think Laura's initial question about what do we, I think that's what you asked, and what I heard was coming out of the gates, I think we gotta work with this consultant to determine that top, maybe top 10 list. I think we've gone through the survey. I think we went through that survey last fall. I think it's a matter now is to document that, get a little bit more finer tune, but I would put that right in the work plan. I agree. It's like one of the first tasks for us is get organized. It's like, this is the request coming out of the gates. I think, Laura, that's what you were mentioning.
Give our
before.
ideas.
Give our
and-
ideas and based on the
Our
feedback that we
wishes.
have, because we have gone through that survey. I thought they really liked that. The township has already been proactive to get that out there.
I think that's where you start is with the survey data. A little bit with, which I think Peter put into the RFP that, you know, we'll have survey data that we can share with you. To start from there, and then some of the things may be, you know, aesthetic improvements, you know, at this point, we don't necessarily know. That's something to, you know, develop a little bit and then be somewhat proactive, but somewhat reactive to what, you know, MDOT's not gonna come forward with
No,
a bunch of aesthetic stuff, so that may be something that we have to kind of
Push
on
it.
of.
I agree. That's what she-
And some of that might be born from, hey, here's our 5 alternatives, and then we see kind of what you know, can fit in on those.
So maybe some type of workshop with the company sometime this summer to work through some of those
Yeah.
elements out of the survey, what we're looking as a board, Ken, maybe?
Yeah, I think we have to go into it. If there are things we want to see incorporated, you know,
Yeah.
we kind of need to go into the
Agreed.
meetings with MDOT with that. So I don't want us just to be totally just reacting to what they come up with. Obviously, we want to say, here are things we would like to see included.
Mhm.
I'm not sure
So
yet.
should
we know
it
exactly
be
what that
sooner
is.
than that? Than summertime, like Tony's saying, or?
I feel like summer's fine based on the timeline you guys provided with MDOT's approach to the work.
I think we should
It's still
pencil that
advanced.
for June. We should, we're gonna get somebody on board
Yes.
in May. Just pencil that in as a part of the,
The June, deputy June.
yeah, I would. So that you can hit the ground running. At least it'll be black and white what we're what we're hearing, what we're thinking,
Mhm.
the work we've done over the last couple of years, at least we'll have a packet to start with, or some pieces of information.
Yeah.
I guess on that note, is there any other toll gates or milestones or, as we move? So to me, that's the initial one, is to have some type formal workshop, identify those opportunities. But is there something else that we want in the middle? Say later this year, and then something at the end? To sort of wrap this up? Any
I can't do anything in the
thoughts?
middle, since I feel like it's gonna be like a work in progress with each other. With them, but maybe at the end, like just like an executive summary of the work that we've done with the consultants, so when we're out in the public and people ask us, we can have this, easy to share conversation piece about the work that was done, the considerations that were made, the whys we can't do some things, the whys we can do some things. So that we're better armed and prepared for that.
Uh,
Which shouldn't be challenging, like that's, all that work's just gonna be produced along the way.
No, I like that.
Yeah.
That should be a deliverable. I would ask the question, Peter, if whoever is part of the, I don't know if the interview or what, but would it be good to understand from their point of view, what are some of the questions that we should be asking? Obviously that's something that we're gonna be working through when we get together in June, but even as part of that proposal RFP response, it would be good to understand what they're thinking.
Okay.
And does that sound? Is there anything more that you would recommend, or something that we missed?
Yeah.
I mean, how bold do you wanna be? I mean, yeah, right? All right,
So for your consideration, there is a motion in here just to kind of take official action on moving ahead with the RFP. That's on page 5 in the packet.
I move to approve the RFP with Peter, with the updates as we discussed.
Okay.
There is support. All in favor?
Aye.
Appreciate your flexibility on that one. I think we're got to a good place with it.
Oh, it's fantastic. Thank you for all your hard work. All right, new items of business. Look, it appears that we have a couple informational meetings that we're looking to schedule for 2024. You wanna?
Yeah, so so thanks to Courtney, actually, to make sure that we knew that the law had changed about the informational meetings, because I didn't know that. When I had started here last year. And so we did get them in by the end of the year, but I just want to be a little more proactive and not have to have our backs up against the wall as the year ticks by. So I'm proposing that we try them to do here one in April and one in August. And that gives us some time if one of them gets canceled or we can't get a quorum
Sure.
to have a couple still in the fall. So the notices is 14 days. I can prepare those and get those out before the April meeting. We got plenty of time. So if you're up for that, then have that for now. So I do have a motion in here to schedule those 2 required meetings.
Second.
Is there any? There's really, as far as informational meeting, there really isn't much new in April 8th for the public to come and hear about. Not that anybody's gonna show up, but is there a little farther down, like after when we're meeting with, once the MDOT process, or I'm just trying to think, is there a time that to actually have more information for the public to make it worthwhile versus holding a meeting that there's nothing really new and nobody's gonna want to come anyway?
Or the informational meeting is, it's for, it's for mainly for the taxing.
Yeah, the notices go
jurisdictions.
to taxing jurisdictions.
So like LCC, library, and county.
Mm.
by law, so the public can still come to any of the meetings, like the general public. These are just ones
They
where we
don't get notices.
specifically notice
Right.
those taxing jurisdictions.
So they only care about, I guess, hearing how much money, from a program point of view, there's nothing that we need to have informational meeting with them on.
They didn't, none of them showed up to last year's,
No.
trying to space them out, I think was Peter's idea.
My
So we
mission was
didn't
just-
get down to November, December
Yeah.
again.
That's all.
I guess on that
We
note,
can do them whenever, we can do them whenever, I think, just as long as we have two of them.
I guess, yeah.
And the state law doesn't require any specific content. We don't
Yeah.
have to do anything special for them.
Just open it for the public.
Just have it, yeah, just-
And can it be a meeting that's piggybacked on one of our previously?
That's how we've done them. Yeah. In fact, we just added them as new business.
Okay.
do we have any updates on the dollars though, coming out of 23? Is there something to share further?
Not necessarily anything new. That wouldn't be available at any other meeting.
Okay.
But the calendar is yours, however you wanna have these.
Sounds like it's a pointless meeting and nobody's gonna care to attend anyway, so I guess.
Yeah.
It's one of those bureaucratic things, right?
Yeah.
You really know something, you know, it serves no purpose, but hey.
We have a public to be on, so.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's nothing that's stopping us from communicating to our taxing jurisdictions if something big does happen after this.
Sure.
Inviting them to another meeting.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so it sounds like, April information meeting.
April 8, August 12 is what I've got now. We can revisit that if necessary.
Well, move forward, to approve the, informational meetings for 2024.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks on that.
All right, moving right along, then, under other business, got some staff updates and I know a lot of some updates that regarding the Delta crossings, obviously the project and a grant, it looks like.
Yep, I'll run through those if that works. Delta Crossings, the update is the township has issued a building permit to construct a Burlington store over at Delta Crossings. If you've been in there, you may have seen it. So that is the Burlington, that's the Saginaw is moving over to the new one. They are under construction right now. It's the gap that is in between Bob's Discount Furniture and Sierra.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm getting my shopping centers down. And we have plenty of them. So that does leave, of course, a 75,000 square foot hole on Saginaw. We are in contact with the real estate agent. You see, there's a new sign out there. So we have been talking to that guy. Their first course of action is to find a big tenant to fill the space. If that's not possible, and who knows right now, they do have, they could divide that space up into smaller tenant spots.
Yeah.
So it is actively being marketed. It is what it is, in this case. But I guess the bigger update on Delta Crossings as well, that's the biggest part of it, but through the protracted conversations we had with the developer that led to the building permit, it sounds like the legal battle is not completely over. There's an appeal that is still out there somewhere that's supposed to be resolved at some time in the spring or summer.
Really, there's an appeal.
Yeah, so there was a decision made and then there's an appeal period for that. So assuming that resolves itself, we'll be back to the developer that started the project and a much cast of characters has changed, but it's still the same guy.
Yeah.
But he's now backed by this firm out of Ann Arbor. It's a real estate development firm that has a big portfolio of properties.
Okay.
So, yeah, but we haven't got really any updates on future phases or when other things might come along. We are really pushing for the cleanup of the at-home site. I was out there on Friday and it's still bad. I mean, it needs to be cleaned up. We're told that that's gonna be done as part of the mobilization of the construction crew. But this, we're really hoping that we're gonna keep pushing on that, to get that done. Any other details you think are worth sharing?
I don't think so. Just stay tuned. I know they have some future plans, so kind of in a waiting period with that, but at least construction is ongoing, at least our desire to get phase one and phase two tidied up.
Yeah, and then what you're not seeing on the back end too is the township went aggressively into the conversations, trying to get our punch list completed. There's a lot of remaining items that were not done. And I know phase one isn't done, but there are a lot of things that weren't done at all, just weren't done at all. So we're really trying to shore a lot of that up, and they have been working on some of those. So some fixes to, like, for example, the sidewalks in the area there, like capping some utilities or
Yeah,
some
a
utility
lot
work.
just because it was multi-phase and a lot of different projects going on, a lot of utility stuff that just needed to be tidied up, and that type of thing, so. They've been, pretty cooperative so far, in that once they got moving.
I assume Burlington going in, though, that must be a sign that they're proceeding.
They're proceeding with at least Burlington, and we haven't heard anything concrete about what might be coming next.
Okay.
There have been ideas,
Okay.
but nothing, I think official enough to
Okay.
really announce.
When you use the term cleanup, are you referring to a brownfield cleanup?
No, not, sorry, I mean
Okay.
more just like, just tidy, not
Okay.
completing,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
some things that were not done. Or some things like we had a cracked sidewalk in one place.
Thank you.
So we're gonna stay on top of that, and then, future phases will be highly scrutinized. I guess it'll be a way to say that.
Highly.
You learn.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, so if no questions about Delta Crossings, we move on to project updates. I didn't deliver a page. There wasn't really a lot of stuff, new stuff to announce, to justify the paper. But some of you got an email, no, all of you should have gotten an email from me if you looked at it. We're gonna have a grand opening for a new restaurant in the Lansing Mall called the Carters. Their soul food chicken wing place. It's a local couple that had been doing wing, well, I guess wing competitions are a thing, and are in the area and have been doing really well. And they're gonna open a restaurant in the mall. So it's just another good sign of progress at the Lansing Mall. So that's next Saturday at 11 a.m. And I know a Saturday is tough, but if anyone happens to be out, I'll be there. My wife will be there. We'll have the giant scissors.
What's that?
11 a.m. So I'll send a reminder later this week on that one. And then Anna's House finally did announce, they did a press release because we didn't have the meeting in February. You may have missed it, but they're gonna be in the PFC shopping center. And then there's a bar, what is it?
Jude's Bar.
Jude's has moved to another space in that center to accommodate Anna's House being there. So if any of you have been to the Anna's House in Okemos, they do real well, they're busy. So looking at that as a positive
Was
thing
that,
here.
where the old tin can was?
Yeah, they're taking the tin can space right up at the front. Tin Can moved a shopping center over and they're renovated or have been reopened now for months. So we're able to keep a tenant and get a new one, so worked out well in this case. And then I announced the Burlington, Taqueria El Chaparrito is adding a small grocery space in their restaurant. So they're gonna be doing takeaway food and then some other items. They already have kind of a little retail spot where they sell pots and some other fun things. So they're gonna be doing some kind of grocer related things. I'm not sure how that's gonna manifest yet, but that was the building permit we got. It looked kind of cool. Those are the big things on the short term here. Border, well, it's not really corridor, but Canal Club Apartments is on the planning commission's agenda for tonight. It'd be phase 3, so there's 2 Canal Club developments here in the township. And this would be the third one, just north really of the township development here between us and there's another Canal Club up here already. So 354 multifamily dwellings. And the reason I mentioned it is kind of corridor adjacent.
Mhm.
And it's impacting the corridor with more units.
Good.
The last thing I had on here, any questions about project updates or anything else you might have seen while driving around? Okay,
Thank you for clarifying for me that development that's happening in North Market.
yeah, for anybody else, just if you've thought about it, if you're driving down Marketplace Boulevard or Marketplace Drive south of Walmart, the courtyard at Delta is what's under construction on the west side. It's 2 buildings, are senior, age restricted, but they're specifically assisted living and memory care. And then the last thing here is MISTA. It's called MISTA's Michigan State Housing Development Authority, HRI's Housing Readiness Incentive Grant. And it's a grant that again, not necessarily corridor, but the corridor is going to be a part of this. What we're doing, we got $50,000 from MISTA to use towards kind of a really broad housing, I'll just say housing. But what the township is proposing to use those dollars for is an update to the community master plan. And the community master plan here has not been updated since 2013. In fact, we still call it a comprehensive plan, which is the old name for the document. So what we're doing, there has been an attempt in previous years to get the document updated. The last effort was right around COVID and it just didn't get completed. So we're looking to reinvigorate that process, but also add this housing component. But it's a little bit different take on housing, because in this community, we specifically have capacity limits based on utilities. So where there are areas of the community we just can't serve. It's going to be kind of two-pronged. It's more of a technical report. It's more kind of trying to understand based on through the lens of our utility capacity challenges, how many units or how much residential growth could the community have and where would that be? And really, that's kind of the first, I think that's the first step in order to back into where, if we were going to see residential growth here, how would that happen? Where in our community would it make sense? And in those areas, do we have the appropriate master plan designations? Do we have appropriate zoning? Are our density standards in line for what growth could be possible given our utility capacity challenges? And really just trying to understand that market and how that all works here, because we do have limits. Not every community has the same challenges, but in this case, we do have this sewer challenge. So that's how we're looking at it. So it's a little bit different from a lot of the housing. We're not proposing any kind of necessarily new types of housing. It's really just understanding what can we do, and then we can have the second part of that conversation down the road someday. So that should get started here in the next month.
In the area of housing, is that something that can also be incorporated, something for low cost housing?
Potentially, but this study specifically will not look at that part of it.
Yes.
It's more just gonna tell us like how many could we have, not necessarily what it would be.
Okay.
I'm seeing that as a potential phase 2,
Sure.
because that's more of be careful. It's more of a political decision on how exactly what composition of houses that we allow in this area.
Yes.
But so that's specifically excluded from this. We're just looking at the technical capacity part of it.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks. Supplement that, anything?
No, I think you covered it. Good.
Any questions about the grant and that effort?
Nope.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Great news. Okay, looks like we're scheduled here on April 11th at 4 p.m.
April 8th.
April 8th.
Oh, I'm sorry, April
Yep,
8th.
Monday the 8th. at 4.
Monday, thank you. All right, so that takes care of other business. Anything under closed session or anything else we need to cover today from
No
open it
closed
up?
session.
Nothing? Okay. Well, that is the case. We will adjourn. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right.